Have you ever faced a moment in your life where everything changed and you had decided who you were needing to be next? What if your body stopped working the way you needed it to? What if your plans were just taken off the table? What if life asked more of you than you ever thought you could give? Today's conversation is about resilience, reinvention, and what is possible when you refuse to stay where life leaves you. My guest today is Lisa Rock. She is an entrepreneur, an author, and a woman who has navigated more than most. From being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and experiencing paralysis, to rebuilding her life and creating a successful business. Lisa's story is one of strength, determination, and possibility. And now she is stepping into a new chapter with the release of her novel, The Gordian Knots. This conversation is for every woman who has ever wondered, is there more for me? Lisa, welcome to Beyond the Glass Slipper. I am so glad you're here.
Hey, Cindy, I am honored, truly honored to be here.
I'm glad. When we first met, I have to tell you, I was sitting on the edge of my seat and I had goosebumps. Now, I've tried to retell your story most recently this morning to my granddaughter, but I've also tried to share your story with some of my close friends. Like, this woman is incredible. I'm so glad that I met you. So inspiring and so good at telling your story that when I tell your story, it pales in comparison. I'd like for you to start. Will you share a bit of your background? Would you mind doing that?
No, not at all. I was fortunate enough to marry a military officer, and we traveled quite a bit, including overseas to Europe. And I had two children in Europe. And we lived on one of the places we lived was a little island off the coast of Greece, part of Greece called Crete. We lived
Oh,
there for two
it's
years. So we were
gorgeous.
living kind of a fairy tale back in the day. I had three children, one when I got back to the States. So three in a row. They're a year apart.
Oh my God.
And
I
people are like, "Are you crazy
twins.
having three kids in a row?" I said, "Well, we were on an island and there was nothing else to do except stay pregnant." So anyway, I've been married to the same guy for, let's see, since 1981. So we're
Oh,
going on
my
45 years
years.
this year.
Yeah.
And he's
Congratulations.
retired. He's retired now, and he puts up with all of my, like, crazy ideas. And, but somehow, when you put a crazy idea into motion and you work hard enough and you believe in yourself and you have a backbone where a lot of people have a wishbone, sometimes you can make those crazy things happen. I was really put to the test, I think, when I was working full time as an executive in the healthcare world. After 20 years in the business, I started losing feeling in my hands and my feet, my legs, my arms. 6 doctors later, because I was diagnosed with stress. I was even diagnosed with it's in your head. Take
Many women are.
yeah, we're just not taken seriously. Believe me, we're not. And I said, to one of the doctors, I said, my hands are stuck like claws. This can't be normal. They won't move. And I had dizzy spells and I had blurry vision and I couldn't hear. And then I couldn't walk, and I wasn't imagining that. Everything was heavy, my coat was heavy. So finally, a good friend of mine who lives out in Boston said, "You really need an MRI. Go find another primary care, get an MRI, and get diagnosed." And so I did, and boy, was he right. They admitted me into the hospital. I had lesions on my brain and my spinal cord, and they did a bunch of ugly tests, ruling out a lot of ugly diseases, and ended up diagnosing me with multiple sclerosis. And I was in the hospital for nearly a month. And I was in outpatient rehab for occupational and physical therapy for even longer than that. And I was on 11 different drugs.
Yeah.
So I didn't look good. I didn't feel good. And a lot of MS patients do lose their jobs. And it's a stat that, I wasn't aware of until I actually was faced with that. I'm sure there are a lot of diseases that get in the way of career women. And anyway, so I wasn't doing well on the drugs, and I decided to do a holistic approach. And I did music therapy, I did sunshine therapy, nutrition therapy, and I worked with a neurologist, and we slowly weaned, because you can't just stop those drugs cold turkey. So slowly weaned myself off all of these drugs, and he gave me 12 months to do it this way. And if it didn't work, I promised to go back to traditional medicine. My treatment is not for everyone, and it was under the care of a physician. So I just want to be clear about that. In the beginning of this, I lost my job.
Wow.
And that's when I decided to look at my disability policy, which was a joke. It didn't cover anything at all, not even my mortgage. It was a very tiny amount. And I thought, okay, I have two choices. I either go bankrupt and move in with someone, or, and there was really no one to move in with who could help take care of me. Um, and at that time, there's a whole issue with my husband we're not going to go into, but he got really sick at the same time. Brain aneurysms. It was big. I'm in a really tough situation. And a friend of mine said, why don't you just work from home and do what you've always done in healthcare and start your own business? And I said, have you seen me? Can't use my hands. I can't stand up. I said, who is going to trust their business with me? I don't
Yeah.
trust their
Yeah.
business with me.
Right.
And they said, no, 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 we will help you. So I had a couple of close family members and friends put some money in the pot, and we started this business from my bedroom. And there were a lot of naysayers. What are you doing? You're sick. Are
Aw.
you crazy? This is too risky. Just take your lot in life and live with it. Get your disability and do your thing. And I decided to go ahead and give it a try. So every morning before I started my day, I would jam out to classic rock to get myself in a fighting mode, like fighter pilots do,
Good for you.
and attack my day. And I learned little tricks to get around the disease and kind of put it in the back seat while I drove. And that's sort of how I managed things. And we started growing and we started hiring people. And then we had to move to a bigger office. And then we had to bring in
Amazing.
an investor. And 2021, we sold to private equity as the largest surgical billing company in the country.
That's
So we
amazing.
had 1,800 employees when I left.
1,800 employees, that's pretty and you started this while you were still in your wheelchair and unable to
Mhm.
move. I have to interject here. I talk about 3 pillars on which Beyond the Glass Slipper is rooted, if you will, and the second pillar is community and connection, and I'm just wondering how you mentioned that your family and friends, how big of an influence did they have on you getting started and growing until you had 1,800 employees.
So I had fewer that believed in me.
Okay.
I had many more who were just genuinely worried about me taking on this kind of venture in a sick mode. So what that did was energize me. So
Okay,
they
yeah,
both
so
helped.
somebody doubts you, you're gonna prove them
Yes.
wrong. I think you have that kind of spirit. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and there were more of those. It's not that I have a chip on my shoulder, but I kind of grew up with a chip on my shoulder, and it wasn't that I wanted to prove them wrong. It's just that I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it despite what anyone else was saying. What choice did I have? I didn't have some rich uncle to call and bail me out for the rest of my life. A lot of us don't have
Right.
that option.
Mhm.
And so I did it. And the naysayers were just as helpful to me as the people in my inner circle.
That's awesome. On the episodes, I talk about the fact that you don't need a large support group. You need a few, and this is
You.
driving that point. This is a real life story where it was
Mhm.
those few that believed in you and helped you. It was interesting because the ones who didn't, you really dug deep and said, I'm going to prove them wrong. Would you agree with
Well, and
that?
I'll give you an example of how those people in my inner circle helped me. So we would go to, say, a hospital and we're pitching our very tiny business and services, and my hands had tremors, and that scares people. When you're in
Yeah.
business, they're like, and I'm going to trust my millions of dollars with you. Why? You can't even get your shakes under control. And then they start inventing all these reasons why you have it. And you don't want to go into your whole medical history. It's none of their business. So what I would do is I would sit on my hands, and the person with me
Yeah.
would take all the notes.
Awesome.
And so when I walked, I either walked with my hands in my pocket or holding on to something so heavy so you couldn't see me shake. So that was one little trick that we used to get through those
But
tough moments, and what my inner circle, just to name one example, and there's so many to give, of how my inner circle helped me. And it's, by the way, helping is a two-way street. What they were getting out of the deal was knowledge about the business, working together as a team, and being part of something that could potentially blow up or grow. And we were lucky enough to grow, but
yeah.
that they ended up all being senior people in the organization when we sold.
Nice. Very nice. I'm very glad. That's just such an incredible story to me. And I have to ask you, so now here you are and you lost your job and you rebuilt a business while still recuperating. How did the end of your journey play out with regard to the holistic homeopathic journey that you were on? How long did it take you to recover?
It wasn't fast. It was super slow, baby steps, but I was showing improvement. We did an MRI after a year, and in MS, you have these white lesions on your brain or spinal cord, and they light up when the disease is active, and they were beginning to gray out. And
Nice.
so that was a really good sign. And I would have relapses. I have what's called relapsing remitting. I would have relapses from time to time, but if I stayed in bed, usually 3 or 4 days straight, then it would go away
Oh,
for maybe 6 months or so, and that was progress for me. So it took probably 6 months to a year before I was out of a wheelchair. I would still if we went to the mall or something, I'd have to do the wheelchairs. I couldn't do those long walks. I would say, let's see, 2003 to 2008, maybe 5 years later, I was feeling pretty good. And I went
mm,
into complete remission, and I'm one of the 1% of MS patients that actually go into remission, and I'm 100% no drugs.
that is amazing. A lot of determination. Would you agree with that? What were you
So
was your mental state? Was it kind of a roller coaster during your journey, or
well,
were you
when you have active lesions on your brain and even on your spinal cord, MS patients will tell you there are these issues that you can have. I had panic attacks. I'd never had those in my life. And unfortunately, they only hit when I was in the shower. I'm like, why am I going to die every time I take a shower? I called my doctor. My doctor said, it's okay. It's just panic attack. Do you wanna go on a drug? I'm like, "No. How do I get rid of this drug free? Because I can't have this every time
Yeah.
I get in the shower." And he said, "Do you have your coffee first?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, stop drinking caffeine. That'll probably kill it." And it did. There were changes along the way that I had to make, and that's one example of one. The glass slipper meant something totally different until I had this disease. Glass slipper back in the day had nice, cute
Yeah.
heels on it. Today, it's called flats.
Okay. That's
So
okay.
we
It's
can
called
still
accommodation.
wear a glass slipper. It just can't, it just looks a little different. That's all. Maybe it's got an orthopedic inset, but you just make those little changes and ride with it. Because if you say to yourself, "Oh, I can't give up coffee," or "I can't give up high heel shoes," well, then you're right. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be miserable, and I'm just not a miserable person.
Yeah, that shows through like 1,000%. You are determined and nothing's going to stop you, and even with just a little bit of nudge by your support system, it's amazing where you took it. It's
Yeah.
really pretty impressive. So then I have to get closer to this wonderful story that you've just published a novel that will be released. It's gonna be released
In about a
like the
week.
beginning of in another
Pretty
week.
soon. Yeah, any day now. I'm waiting for my publisher any day now, and they're really good, by the way. As a first-time author, going through the publishing experience is so enlightening. There are a lot of things that you just don't expect that come up. Like anything else in life, you learn through experience.
It's yeah, and
I
absolutely.
think
Can you share some of the things only because there are many women in my audience, they're in their encore years and they're looking to, invent or reinvent or find a new purpose in life. It comes up a lot when I'm having conversations with women in the encore women's circle. Many mention, "Oh, I have a book in me. I'd love to write a book," that type of thing. So if you could encourage somebody to write a book, what would you say?
I would say let's start with the negative first. Let's just put the cards on the table. When you start any kind of business, the odds are 95% it's going to go under in a year. And then what's left, 95% of that will go under in a year. Well, with those odds, who wants to try? It's just, that's overwhelming. And people want to write a book for the same reason they want to start a business because they think they have something to offer. They think that story that they have is worth telling, whether it's a self help or a personal story or something they totally made up. And if you listen to the naysayers in the book world, oh my God, you don't have a master's degree from Columbia in literature. You are not entitled to write a book. Well, I heard the same thing about business from Harvard MBAs.
Okay.
And I would go into board meetings with them sitting there, and they may know a lot about whatever it is they're doing, but I know a lot about what I'm doing. And I don't have some fancy school to embarrass when I open my mouth and I have something to say. So that is something that I got clear right away. And I took control of what I know. And if they were interested in what I know, then we could work together because I'm certainly interested in working with them. That's why I'm sitting in your boardroom. But
All right.
if you're interested in working with me, then this is who I am and this is what I have. And then the same thing with the book. I wasn't interested in writing a book for a Pulitzer Prize. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to share a story that I had that I think is really entertaining. I like stories with a little bit of treasure, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of paranormal, a little bit of truth in there, and I threw that all in a bucket and finished my first novels. Again, dressing the naysayers with any project that you're doing is first and foremost. You to acknowledge it and say yes, thank you, and then put your plan together. If you don't work at your plan, you will fail.
Okay.
99% of the time. You've got to put the work behind it. And so I would say no matter what it is, even if people tell you it's the dumbest idea in the world, if you believe in it, if you're really crazy, then that's a different conversation. But if you have a couple of people that are on your side and say, you know what, I think you got something here and you trust their opinion, then that's enough. That's enough to go.
Would you mind sharing, not to put you on the spot, any integral, any really key, a place to start, to step, to put that plan together? Where did you start, if you wouldn't mind sharing, or what did you learn about developing your plan that you may have done differently that you're going to do? Spoiler alert here for your coming books, but we'll get to that in a minute.
It's a really good question. You have to have a plan. So when I started the business, I had a plan. And I'm going to give you one example of what happened to that plan. I landed 4 really good, very small, but really good startup clients. And 2 of them were in Florida. This is in 2004. So you guys
Okay.
can check me by Google facting me. 2 of the surgery centers were hit by a hurricane that I was
Oh, okay.
supposed to work for. And so they stopped everything and had to rebuild. And so that put my business on hold. And I'm new and I had already I was counting the money. I
Right.
had a had a contract in my hand, and I told the bank, I
Counting.
told, my partners, "We've got this. We're ready to go," and they were hit by a hurricane. That wasn't in my plan. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? It took a couple of months, they rebuilt, and we were good to go, and they got hit by another hurricane. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" But it's
Lightning's
Florida,
not supposed to strike twice in the same place, right? Isn't that true?
and so for 12 months, I had no revenue coming in for these contracts. I was told then, "You better give this up. Look, you've been in business a year, you're already losing money, blah, 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 right?" And guess what? They opened, we started. It was really hard to climb out of that. So, my point is that if you have a plan, you have to have a plan for anything you do. Expect that you're going to have curveballs. It could be partner issue, it could be a finance issue, it could be a compliance or legal issue. There are a million things that could come into play that weren't part of your plan.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with it. Just head
Great.
on, just deal with it.
Just deal with
And
it.
so that's one, and then put your nose to the desk and work, 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 then look up, look back at your plan, look at where you are, and see if those match, because you could keep going in that same way or you might need to readjust. So that's how it's done.
Nice. Well, you're living proof of what you're talking about here today. We touched on how you felt mentally during this journey. How did you manage the pain?
I
How were
don't
you
have
able to yeah,
pain that often.
okay.
It comes and goes, but it's pretty rare. It's not so much pain as it is extreme fatigue. I'll
Okay.
get to a point where I feel like I need to drop dead. I just need to stop. And when my body is telling me to stop, I listen to it and I stop. I don't try and push through it. I rest. I stay in bed for whatever period of time. It's usually, unfortunately, it hits me on the weekend. It never hits me Monday through Friday. I get to the end of the
On
week,
your
I'm like, ah.
downtime, do you believe in the fact that sometimes when we're on that go, go, go path, that we work through it and we're feeling great, and the minute we, Saturday morning, I'm gonna sleep in a little bit, I'm gonna have a cup of coffee, I'm gonna sit and relax, that's when whatever ails us really kind of presents
You can
itself.
feel it. No, 1,000% because you are paying attention now to what's going on. Before you were distracted with
Right.
everything. With as women, we worry, we care about our families, about our pets, about the world. And at the end of the week, when that kind of stops and you take a break, then you want to go to whatever Grant's Farm with the kids. I'm like, no,
I love Grant's Farm. I've only been there 1 time, maybe 2 times, but I love Grant's Farm.
or
It's
whatever it
beautiful.
is. You're like, yes, like mentally, I would love to, but I think I just need to stop for a while and rest. But yeah,
Good for
yeah.
you. Well, good for you. So, that brings me to my next question. You just said it all. Like as women, we do for others, and we're concerned about others, and we keep going with our own professional things that we need to accomplish in our own personal.
Hmm.
So, I know you have 3 children. Is that correct? And they're all
Boy, girl,
boys.
boy,
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 girl,
girl,
boy.
boy.
Okay. So how did they react? How were they able to support you? But more importantly, how were you able to take care of everything? And I know that you shared with me that your husband was going through some things at the same time, which is talk about having your plate full. How did you juggle all of that?
So in my family, everyone has something big they're managing as far as their health is concerned. And I mean really big. My husband had 7 brain aneurysms and one bled on the brainstem. And then my oldest son was in combat during the Iraq war and he was injured in combat, had to have surgery. And then my daughter has type 1 diabetes.
Oh,
And
that's
my youngest son, he has 5 kids.
oh my goodness,
Which is
5.
a lot, and his wife's a registered nurse, works part-time from home, but he is sort of the breadwinner and carries the stress of making sure that, he can provide for all of his kids, and his kids are nationally ranked athletes,
Oh,
and
that's
so that
incredible.
means a lot of travel and a lot of expense and a lot of time, and that's stress too. We all have our own set of luggage. There's a mutual respect for each other. There isn't any one person that says, "Look what I have to deal with," because, look who we're talking to.
Look at
So
your audience, right?
we just can't do it in our household. We just collect our scars. All of us put them in the back seat and we just go. And that's just how we deal with it.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. Wow.
But my kids are cool. Like all
Yeah.
3 of them are awesome, beautiful, wonderful people, thank God.
Well,
So
look at the
I
role
got lucky.
model that they've had. How old were they when you were hospitalized for that month period and you were being
My
told that
son was in Iraq when
oh,
I went into the hospital.
hospital.
That was the timing on that one. And so he couldn't even come home and see me. He was fighting a war. And back then he had an embedded reporter named Chip Reed of MSNBC. And I used to watch that program so I could see my son on the battlefield. Thank God I never did because mostly what they aired were battlefield funerals back then. So, but it
Wow.
was very stressful for all of us. And who knows, that could have kicked me into
So that's
the disease
yeah,
itself. I mean, because stress can do a lot to you, and I would never say that, and blame him for it, of course not. He's very patriotic and he joined because he loves his country. But on the other hand, as a mother, it's really a difficult thing to know that your son's in combat, but to watch them in combat is a whole different level, which is
level
what the military moms people don't think about that today. When you see the activity going on in the world now, there are moms and dads of those kids over there. Imagine how stressful that would be to watch that. Um,
extremely, extremely,
so
yeah.
they so my son was there. My daughter and youngest son were in college, so they were in the all about me phase. So they were okay. They didn't worry about me so much. Mom will always be fine.
Mom will push through. She's resilient. Yeah, so you've been a great role model for them is the bottom line,
Well,
certainly.
I think it's interesting. I didn't try to be that. I try to be there. I try to be there for them, whatever
Nice.
they need. And they don't need a lot, but I do try to be there for them. So
That's amazing. Good for you. I'm, excited for you to share with my audience more about your journey. And now here is this high-level executive who, had a wonderful job, lost her job because of her illness, rebuilt herself. I loved it. Would you share with everybody the name? You have an acronym for your business, and I love that. if you wouldn't
When I
mind sharing that.
started the company, it was called Nash Medical Billing Services. I was with a group of people in my dining room, and we were trying to come up with a name for this company, which is just playing office at that point because you're not making any money. It's just all kind of throwing ideas out. And one idea was professional medical services, and I'm like, PMS. Be called PMS. So
That's
we went through this whole thing and we came up with NMBS for National Medical Billing Services, or No More Bull
right.
Services.
Yeah. No more bullshit.
And I said, you know what? That fits because we want to have integrity with our clients, with our employees. I don't want anyone to go through what I went through when I lost my job. I lost it because I was sick, and I just don't want anyone else to go through that. So if anyone's working for me and they get sick, I'm not leaving them. I don't care what it takes. And point in fact, the COVID pandemic hit, and a lot of businesses were either closing their doors or furloughing. Remember that the federal government shut down all elective surgeries at that time, and that's all I did. I managed
Yeah.
elective surgeries. So all of my business shut down. I didn't lay off one person during that whole thing until we turned it back on. And that was really hard to do. I mean, words can't even describe how hard that was to do.
Was, I'm sure.
But my management team all took significant pay cuts. I did, my partners did, and the ones that made an hourly wage, we didn't touch. But that was enough to get us through the next couple of months.
Oh
And
my
that's what we
God.
did.
God
So we
bless
were there
you.
for them and they've been there for us. And we won best places to work many, many, many years in a row by several newspapers and healthcare media publications. So
That's amazing. And when you sold the business, you had 1,800 employees. And does the business still stand today?
yes. So when I sold, we changed the name. The private equity guys wanted a kind of a younger, funner, cooler name.
Okay.
We went with, and I wasn't the owner anymore. They wanted a more hip. My name was 20 something years old.
Oh, right.
So we changed and they asked me if I was okay with that, which I really appreciated. They changed the name to Nimble Solutions.
Nimble Solutions. Okay.
But yeah, they're
Great.
still there and they're still operating. I stayed on for about 3 years during transition, and then it was time for me to leave. There's a lot of new management coming in, and it was time to pass the torch. I left, and I'm like, now what do I do? I've got a non compete. At my age, it feels like forever. So what am
Right.
I going to do? And I decided to write this story that I've always wanted to write.
Okay. So that's a great lead in. Perfect. I'm excited. This book, I can't wait till it comes out because I know I'm going to read it.
So thank you. The book is inspired by a true story. However, I changed the story. I let my imagination go absolutely crazy. It's partly true. It's inspired and based on a true story, but I took a lot of creative liberty, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. So there was a horrible double homicide in 1969, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and of two young women. Horrible. And it was a Charles Manson copycat murder. And I lived across the street from the murder house. And one morning, two detectives came to our house. They were interviewing all the neighbors the day after the murders, and they asked anyone in the house if they'd heard anything. Well, I had heard something. I had gotten up in the middle of the night with my dog barking, and I looked out the front window and I saw a man in a trench coat and a hat walking across our lawn on the side. We were on the end lot, walk across our corner lot and then straight up the driveway of the murder house. I told as much as I could remember, and that was pretty much the end of it. 30 years later, oh, by the way, I didn't know what happened. The detectives never said anything, but I heard at school everything. And I
Yeah.
was 7 at the time. So
Oh,
I
my
heard
goodness.
everything at school. It was pretty horrific. And anyway, 30 years later, the cold case squad calls me and asks me to go under hypnosis to see if I can remember anything else because it's unsolved to this day. I said no, but I had a dream about the dead women. I knew both of them. I had a dream about the dead women that night, and it was pretty intense. And I just got this feeling like I should do something about it. The next night I had dreams, and the dreams became more animated. So then I started thinking, what if, and then that's where my imagination went absolutely crazy. What if one of the women was a descendant of Napoleon Bonaparte and someone found out, someone that had an axe to grind, some secret society based in Europe someplace, and their mission was to wipe out the bloodline? And what if that bloodline ended up in Missouri because Napoleon got some girl pregnant and she made it to the States to the safe area with a bunch of gold. And that gold was lost along the way in Missouri up the Mississippi. And what if the girl
Oh,
actually went under hypnosis 30 years later? And what if the dead women showed up as ghosts in her life to help her along the way? That's the story. The story is about the paranormal. The main character, Claire, is a medical coder, very boring librarian lifestyle. And all of a sudden, she undergoes hypnosis because in real life, I wouldn't do it. But in my book, she goes for it. And then
right.
when she does go for it, that's when the ghosts come out and start haunting her, first in her dreams and then just wherever she is. And they're kind of scary because they look like they did when they were both murdered. And
Oh,
anyway, so I just thought it'd be interesting to kind of follow that trail and figure out why they were murdered. So there's a lot of historical information about Napoleon, about his gold, the Mississippi River, and how we traveled during the early 1800s up the Mississippi River, which is very difficult to do. She meets really cool people along the way in her journey that help her with this project to figure out who murdered the women, why, and that's the story.
how old were the women? Were they young girls when they were murdered, the 2?
They were 20 and 21 when they
20
were
and
murdered.
21,
It
and
happened a long time ago.
no one
They
ever
never
knows?
found the killer. They never found the killer, but I know there were some suspects over the years, and you can't mention any of their names. So, what I gave the readers was an answer to that because the book took a different turn. And the answer is that someone really wanted them dead and made it happen. So,
That is a great story. What made you want to do that, though? I mean, from all of
as
your
I said
professional
no,
background.
I said no to the cold case squad. No, I'm not going under hypnosis. I was terrified of that. I don't want anyone messing around up there. Um, and then I just thought, what would happen if I did undergo hypnosis? And this weirdo story came out of my brain. That's where
Interesting.
the imagination really,
Really,
really
really took
kicked in
flight.
because I did have dreams about them. And then I just thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I went under hypnosis and those sessions kicked off something in my brain that allowed those ghosts to appear and haunt and help guide the main character towards who the killers are and why that happened.
I can't
Wild.
wait for it to come out, yeah. Any future plans? I mean, where I believe you shared with me that you're doing some consulting work now, is that correct?
Do just to keep my skills up in case my book's a big flop. This is a series of 7. This is one of 7.
Okay.
I have the ideas and the outlines for all of them, but I don't want to put the work because this was so much work. So much work. And if it wasn't meant to be, and if people don't like it, then I'm not going to give them more of it. This is not for me. This is not an ego thing. I wanted to create a really fun story that's apolitical, that is not going to offend anyone, that is just entertaining all the way through. So there's no cussing, there's no sex. I try to do something that's just very entertaining that maybe like junior high kids and up could appreciate. But
Good.
I think the real audience is going to be women our age. I think that's who's really going to enjoy this. But if it
Wow.
doesn't work out, I want to make sure that I fall back on something that I've done my whole life, which is healthcare administration, doing a couple of consultative jobs just to keep my skills sharp.
That's smart. Good for you. What do you like to do in your leisure time? Do you have any
It's so
moments of
funny.
leisure?
It changed over the years. I was really huge into collecting like rock and roll memorabilia because I felt like it was partially responsible for helping me walk again. I just appreciated the music and the musicians and I collected their stuff. And I sold my big house when I retired and I don't have room for it anymore, so I'm selling it.
Selling,
My hobby is now selling all of those collectibles that I spent the last 20 years
accumulating.
collecting.
Wow.
And I think now it's enjoying what my friends are doing. I have a good friend that just wrote a book, and his book is doing really well. His name's Merrill Osmond of the Osmond Brothers,
Oh,
and he
okay.
wrote he wrote his brother just passed away the day before yesterday. And
Sorry to hear that. I didn't hear about that.
yeah, yeah, so sad. The leader of that group was Alan, and he just lost a brother last year too. So it's been a tough year for him. But he put a book out about his life, which is you want to talk about mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And he was very encouraging with me because he'd already done this. I think this is his second or third book. He had already been down this road and he was very encouraging with me. He was one of the people in my inner circle that said, "You can do this. You really can. I've done it. And if you ever need any help, call me." And I called him a couple of times. And so I wasn't afraid to reach out if I needed to ask for help.
Nice. I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed everything that you've shared with us. One of the major takeaways, you talk about inner circle, and that's a message that I want to get out to my audience today, how all the research from a neuroscience standpoint supports that connection and community helps us. It elongates our life. It gives us purpose. There's our overall mental and cognitive health. And then also believing in yourself, which is what I've heard you do. Maybe not having it all figured out, but the determination to continue to go when a lot of things were working against you. I mean, you're one brave lady with everything that you had on your plate at that point when you got sick.
Well,
That was a
I
lot.
think it's important for people to know though that you need to ask for help when you need it. You have
That's
to. You can't be afraid of that, and especially
huge.
women at our age, they're afraid to ask for help of any kind. Whether it's moving a chair that you're going to sell or you're afraid to ask someone, "Hey, can you help move this chair for me because if I lift it, I might have a heart attack." Or, any kind of transition where you need to reach out because you have to think about how many times have those people reached out to you over the years, asked for help, and you've always been there for them. And maybe you can't give money and maybe you can't give things, but maybe you can give of yourself. You can give your time and your love, and that's worth more than anything just to be there for someone. If you need someone just to talk to or you need to run an idea past someone, don't keep it all to yourself. But it is that inner circle that is most important at those times you ask for help.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, and I thank you for sharing that because I know so many women are caught into that trap, that need to be independent, and if they ask for help, they're going to be perceived as being weak, when the truth is you're strong when you're able to ask for help. You have confidence in yourself. It's not a reflection on you or what you can do. It's more of a reflection on the fact that you know what you need, you know your limits, and you need help, and you're willing to ask. And that's not so easy for women.
Exactly. No, that's
Yeah.
very well put and exactly right.
So it's interesting. We are so much on the same wavelength here. I'm so glad that I asked you to come and talk. Your final message to a woman that is at our age and is just feeling a little unsettled, maybe feeling like maybe life went her way in a lot of ways, but now she's at a crossroads and she's thinking, how fulfilled do I feel right now? What are some words of advice you'd like to share?
In my own opinion, we have all had crossroads, even people that appear to have everything. I've seen people lose it all. So it could be a loss of someone you love, it could be a loss of finances. And I'll put pets in with someone you love too, because it's really hard to deal with. You reach a crossroads of health issues, it's life. And it could be a number of things that you're faced with. I think it's okay to have some downtime and reflect, be sad and grieve, but then turn on your rock and roll music or your church or whatever it is that gives you strength and drown yourself in that strength and decide what it is you're going to do. Maybe you need to make a change in your life.
Right.
Maybe you give up all those material things and you get that camper trailer and you go across
Good.
the
It's
country for a
concrete.
year and explore and have fun. Maybe you open up that little shop that you've always wanted to do your whole life, or it could be anything. Whatever is in your hopes and dreams, when you're at your very lowest, give yourself that grieving time, and then you go to work.
Pull up your big girl panties and move on forward.
You make it happen. You make it happen, and you might fail. This book might be a big flop, but I'm sure gonna work hard to find out if it's a flop or not. I'm not gonna have 3 people read it. I want 3,000 people to read it.
Good,
And then
good.
if 3,000 people tell me it's a big flop, then I'll say, "Okay, let me try one more time." And if the second one's a flop, I'll say, "You know what? I'm not meant to write. Maybe I'll start that little boutique that we talked about."
Or maybe you'll start banging out that rock and roll music that you love so much. That's so interesting. That's so fun.
It will be
Yeah.
something. So I'm not afraid to fail at all. I know that it just can happen, but don't be afraid to put yourself out there. But don't put yourself out there when you're crying. Don't put yourself out there when you don't know what the plan is. You've got to sort of face your fears. I'm the last person to talk about this. I'm not very good at facing my fears. I still don't like to fly.
Okay.
And I probably will never face that head on, but I would say that instead of facing your fears, just deal with whatever kind of trauma you're going through, because even though your issue might be small in someone else's eyes, it's your issue. And therefore, it's important and it's big and it needs to be dealt with. And you can handle it any way you want. But looking at it and dealing with it, and guess what? Move on. If you
Well,
lost all of your money, so what? Go make some more or live without it. If you lost your someone you love, then you need to grieve and be a part of that. And then at some point, maybe look at something that they always wanted to do and finish it. There are things that you can do to engage to feel alive again. And
and
so I'm not saying any of those answers are good for everyone. I'm just saying that's what I would do.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. I'm sure that there's a lot of women out there that can take so much from everything that you shared today and your life experience and where you're going. And I wish you the best. And before we sign off today, I want you to tell the audience where they can find your book.
Yay. Well, I will. I want to say thank you for this platform. I love the idea. I love the goal and I love what you're doing. It's
You.
amazing. Otherwise, people like me, I'm in my 60s now. I'm in a different place in my life and I have a place where I can go and listen to other women just like me or different from me and I can learn new things. I'm always about that too. So thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate it. My book, The
Yes.
Gordian Knots and the Case of Napoleon's Lost Gold, will be available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I'm going to be doing book signings all over Missouri for the next 60 to 90 days. And then we'll see how we do and if it's being received well. So far, the pre-reviews are really good. Yay.
Yay.
But we'll see how we
Awesome.
do. And if we do well, then I'll start traveling in that little camper trailer outside of Missouri and just have fun with it.
Yes. Please share with me where you'll be doing your book signings. I will post it on my website.
Thank you.
And if anybody's local to, the St. Louis area, they might want to stop in and meet you in person and get their book signed.
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's
Fabulous. Well, I
yes.
appreciate
I
you, the
appreciate you being
platform.
here.
Thank you for having me. What a great honor and a lot of fun.
Pleasure. Ladies, if you've gotten anything from this episode today, please share it with a friend. As Lisa pointed out, she's liking the idea of this network and a place to come and feel supported and talk about what's going on in your life, learn from other women. Please visit my website at beyondtheglassslipper.com. Thank you for joining us today. Lisa, it was a pleasure having you.
Oh, my honor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Today's episode with Lisa Rock is part of our Beyond the Glass Slipper Shared Stories series, where women just like you and me share real stories that have the power to encourage, inspire, and remind us what's possible in our Encore chapter. If this conversation spoke to you in any way, please share it with another woman. The story may resonate with her and provide the encouragement she needs to step forward. We all have a story. Most include moments of insight, growth, and reflection. No matter how messy a chapter may feel, there is often something within it that helps us shape who we are today and what carries us forward. If you would like to share your story or be considered for our Shared Story series, visit beyondtheglassslipper.com, head to the Connect page, and let me know you have a story to share, or email me directly at beyondtheglassslipper55@gmail.com. In the meantime, please follow along and like us on Instagram, watch more episodes on YouTube, and be sure to follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple so you never miss a conversation. The possibilities are endless, and there is no time like the present to step into your encore. And please remember, stay curious.